Thank you very much at magandang araw mga kaibigan. Nagbabalik po ang inyong programa Action Central Zone Special Edition. Ito po si Sunny Lopez and we are on our ninth year this year, and this is a very important topic that we are discussing this segment because for the first time in the history of the Freeport, we're going to have an aviation. An aviation, all the guys in the aviation industry will be trooping here to Clark to talk about Clark's future, ladies and gentlemen. So this time I have the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Peregrine Development International Incorporated, Mr. Dennis Wright, as one of the special guests. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And this is the guy who, really from the private sector is pushing so hard for the development of the Clark Freeport, ladies and gentlemen. And that I know of. Started Clark is it. And of course, we have the Vice President for Commercial and Business Development Group of the Clark International Airport Corporation, Mr. Darwin Cunanan. Darwin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, tell us, Dennis, what are we going to have this February 21 and 22?
Well, the first aviation conference to focus on really Clark and aviation and what the promotion of aviation can do not only for the Freeport but really for the Philippines, because an airport stimulates jobs, it stimulates economic growth, and it just stimulates expansion like never before. So we felt it was very important that there'd be a conference to start bringing together people from all segments of the aviation community.
Both here and abroad also, right?
We're
going to have some observers?
And abroad. In fact, we have some very good speakers lined up, international speakers, one of which is Greg Lindsay, who is the co-author of this book, Aerotropolis and the Way We Live Next. And I'll leave this with you when we leave. But this whole book is focused about how airports change the way we live and how people will live in the future and their dependency on air travel. Everything that Greg talks about in here is part and parcel of the backbone of the conference. But with that, Greg has agreed to fly over here and speak. He's going to be one of the featured keynote speakers at the conference.
That will be good. So Darwin, we all know for a fact that now and in the very near future, the mode of travel is really air travel, right?
Yes. This is actually very timely, because 2012 was really a banning year for Clark International Airport. First is we posted a 72% increase in passenger volume compared to 2011. And this is the first time in a year that we were able to reach 1 million passengers.
Or over.
Yes, over 1 million passengers. In a period of 10 months, last October 24th, we awarded our 1 million, we welcomed our 1 millionth passenger in Clark. And in November 21, the same year, we also welcomed our 5 millionth passenger, which was counted from the day we started, which was way back 2003 with the entry of Asiana. Now, Clark is really growing very fast. The people are now going to Clark to avail of the services we have in terms of airport operations. We now have 37 international flights per day, and we have 8 domestic flights per day. Before, they keep on saying that it's only the birds and the bees flying in the airport. Now it's a very, very busy airport, and people are really going to Clark.
How do we rank nationally?
Nationally, I think we're third in terms of international passengers. Second would be Mactan, Cebu. They have 1.4 million passengers last year. And hopefully within this year, we will be able to overtake Cebu in terms of international traffic. Domestic, it will be hard because Cebu is a domestic hub. It's the hub.
Tourism hub.
Yes, it's a tourism hub, and we're not yet there, but definitely we will be going there as far as Clark is concerned. But hopefully within the year, we will be able to overtake Cebu in terms of international passengers.
Okay, Dennis, you like the figures, right? But I know from the private sector, you don't want to rest on these figures. You want more to happen in Clark.
Well, not just me wanting more for any selfish parochial reason, but when Dr. John Casarda, Greg Lindsay, the two co-authors of this book, who are really world experts on airports and what an airport can do. And I think if the government really understood this, they would drop everything they were doing and develop Clark, because Clark has the ability to influence the Philippine economy like nothing else. Magnitude times stronger and better than the BPO industry or the call center industry or tourism. What Greg and John Casarda talk about is the retail space in shopping in the airports today generate 3 to 5 times the sales revenue per square foot of Mall of Asia or Mega Mall. A sophisticated shopping mall in the airports like you see in Dubai, at O'Hare, at Midway, at the big Charles de Gaulle, the big airports, that shopping drives. Well, that generates a lot of jobs for suppliers and vendors that have to bring the materials into the stores, sales clerk that have to do that. Also, we'll tell you that the value of retail space or commercial space or land is 7 times higher than it is, say, in downtown Manila, in the areas around a metropolis. Now, this is not just hearsay, these are documented. There is more Class A office space being the top of the line office space that you would find, say, in Fort Bonifacio or Makati. Okay, there is more Class A office space in and around Dulles International Airport than there is in downtown Washington, D.C.
Because they're airport
because
driven.
the airport drives it. It's airport driven. Today, everything is about time, just-in-time inventories, just-in-time business. And executives want to be located near an airport, quick in and quick out. But suppliers, vendors, they don't want to carry it. They want parts to be able to move in and move out in a global world. In order to do that, you have to have the airport. So the airport would have a multiplier effect on the Philippine economy. And I think
you're talking about the Philippine economy, not just about the local economy that in the area.
I'm talking about the Philippine economy.
The whole country, right?
The whole country. It will have a disproportionate impact. Certainly it's going to affect this region a big time. But it will drive the entire, I believe, last 2011, there were $4 billion exported from Clark alone. Now, I don't know what the number is this year. I haven't seen what 2012 was for the past year. But between Subic and Clark, I believe in 2011, it was almost 9% of the total country's exports came from Subic and Clark. Nobody's talking about that. They all want to talk about the Calabarzon in southern Manila. But wait a minute, it's exploding up here, but for some reason the national government doesn't want to recognize that. And this is all driven by the private sector.
Right. And like what you're doing now, right?
Like what we're doing.
With the aviation conference that we're having, you're working closely with the government, but it's in a way privately driven.
Privately driven with one of the speakers, and maybe hasn't committed yet, so maybe if people hear this, it'll help stimulate his commitment, is getting Tony Fernandez also as one of the key. He's been invited, all right, just hasn't affirmed. But we're talking about bringing in really leaders in the aviation industry as guest speakers to stimulate this first conference, because we think every year it will only grow and become better. And that will serve a lot to help increase the awareness of the impact of Clark has on not just this region, but the country.
Darwin, if this will happen, this aviation conference will happen, do you think we'll see flights from the U.S.? Right now you have to go to Korea to go to the United States, right? But will there be more dedicated flights
Definitely.
From the U.S. to the Philippines?
Yes, we're pushing for that one. Unfortunately, with the current status of the Philippines right now, we are under Category 2. So no Philippine carrier can add additional flights to the U.S. Although U.S. carriers can fly directly to us without restrictions to Clark. And in fact, even now, AirAsia Philippines would really want to fly to Guam, which is a U.S. territory. They want to fly to Guam, but unfortunately with the Category 2 rating, they could not do so. So once that is lifted, definitely they will go there. This conference might be able to invite American carriers, U.S. carriers, to take a look at Clark and maybe provide additional flights direct to the U.S. from Clark. As we've mentioned before, we're not what SIAC is doing right now is we're pushing towards what we call a twin gateway operation, dual airport scenario. Why? Because Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, where Clark is located, the Cordillera Autonomous Region, we already, and in the northern part of Manila, which is Quezon City and Camanava,
Manila
Caloocan,
North.
Malabon, Navotas, Valenzuela,
Yes.
you have a cumulative population of around 23 million people.
And most of the
OFWs,
OFWs
yeah, around
are coming from
47,
this area,
yeah,
right?
47%, as per NSO statistics. 47% of our OFWs live within that catchment area. And it would be more convenient and beneficial for those people to utilize Clark as their airport rather than go through Manila, because they'll be able to save, let's say, 2 hours, 3 hours of land travel time going from Manila to Clark or vice versa. So what we're saying is, don't close NAIA, because why?
Yes.
Region 4 and the
We've
southern...
never batted for
Yes,
that, right?
Yes,
we
never. We're-
batted for complementation.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Because from northern, southern Manila up to Calabarzon and then southern portion of Luzon, you still have a cumulative population of around 27 million. So the island of Luzon itself services around 50 million people, and,
Yes.
and 2 airports would work.
Yes.
A lot of critics are saying airlines doesn't want to do dual operations. Why? We could only accommodate so much airlines in one airport, like what we have in Manila right now. Manila is congested.
And we have to close the airport to clean up, right?
Exactly.
Every
exactly.
day.
Yes. And once they have equipment breakdown, you
Yes.
could see a lot of aircrafts
Them
right
coming
now.
here.
Yes, they are now diverted to Clark. So if you see a lot of aircrafts flying in and out of Clark because you have a bad weather in Manila, we
They have
an
trouble in
equipment
NAIA,
failure in NAIA. So it's a good thing that Clark is now
Yes.
able to service all
We're
of
ready
those
for them,
flights.
right?
Yes, and people are seeing, oh,
But
Clark
that's
is an
not all we're
alternative.
ready for, right? We're not
Yes.
just for emergency.
Yes.
We're in for doing better business, more
Yes.
business, right?
We are open 24/7, and for a lot of our travelers are quite surprised that we already have 9 international destinations. You could go to Malaysia, you could go to Singapore, to Hong Kong, you could go to Macau, to Bangkok, and you could even go to the US. You could even go to
Via Korea, right?
Via Korea, and now via Cathay Pacific.
Right.
If you take Dragon Air and Cathay are just one.
Sisters?
They set up Dragon Air so that Cathay could fly domestic to China. So if you take the flight from Clark to Hong Kong via Cathay, then you could connect to the network of the whole Cathay Pacific fleet. You could go to the US, to Europe, to Australia, anywhere in the world. So it's a very timely schedule. We now have OFWs from the US, from London, from Canada.
But we just don't want to service OFWs,
Yes,
right?
yes.
We want really foreigners
Yes.
coming over.
That is true. Now, what happens to our flights from Malaysia? Before, majority of our passengers are Filipinos. Now, you take a look at the Malaysia flights from Kuala Lumpur and from Kota Kinabalu. You see a lot of Malaysian tourists coming to Clark right now. So,
Okay, Dennis, tell me, is that new, operating 2 airports in one area, one region?
No, in fact, it's just the opposite.
That's not unique, right?
It is not unique. In fact, it's the standard. And for the Philippines to even, I think, consider closing NAIA would be a huge mistake. Huge mistake. The world experts, if you get the consensus, you always find different dissenting opinions, but if you take the consensus of the world's experts, Philippines needs NAIA.
Right.
Forever and in perpetuity. And the good analogy would be is if those of us who are old enough remember that the original airport in Tokyo was Haneda.
Yes.
And they built Narita way up to the north in farmlands, amid violence, in fact, trying to reclaim it from the
When it
farmers.
was done, right?
Right. So, and in Washington, D.C., you had Ronald Reagan, but it used to be Washington National, downtown, one runway, very congested, and they built Washington Dulles in the early 80s, and it sat dormant. It was actually it was built in the 60s, but it sat dormant from 60s to 80s, much like Clark, utilized. Now it exploded, but National still serves the capital. Haneda still serves the capital in Tokyo. And the same thing with Paris. And go around the world. We can take the old Orly airport in Paris, France.
Right.
But you have Charles de Gaulle. More recently, we can go just to one of the neighbors, ASEAN neighbors in Thailand. They had the old downtown Bangkok airport, and now they have Suvarnabhumi.
In Hong Kong, right?
Hong Kong's a little different because they have one, they're mega, but they're a city-state. It's a lot different scenario there, and in Singapore, where they don't even have land, hardly have
Yes.
one airport. So, but if you go out, you have the same thing with the original airport in Chicago was Midway, not O'Hare. In New York was LaGuardia, not JFK. So it would be a huge mistake to think you could close NAIA. NAIA must be there to
Yes.
serve the capital. But you do need a satellite, and distance is not measured in miles anymore or kilometers. It's measured in time. And I think it does a disservice to people like myself, a businessman. I fly out of Asiana Airlines out of Clark to the States, 22 hours. That's faster than I can get to the States from Delta in Manila. And that's with excellent connections, business class through Incheon to LA, Chicago, New York, and I typically will fly into New York. 22 hours after leaving Clark, I'm in New York. That's incredible service. Unfortunately, it's only one scheduled airline, and we need to have more. So it'd be a big mistake. You need the two airports.
Yes.
Every major city in the world has two. And if you take the UAE, you had the old Dubai airport. They built the new one in Abu Dhabi, and now they're building the jumbo mega airport in Jebel Ali, halfway in between. So you cannot build enough airports.
Right, especially nowadays, right?
Especially nowadays, and especially since, by and large, domestic air transport in the Philippines is very much in its infancy. The majority of Filipinos really are not yet flying, but with the low-cost fares,
They're starting to.
So where do those planes go?
Right.
I'd lead to another challenge. When the Department of Tourism says it's more fun in the Philippines, we're going to increase tourism from 3.5 million to 10 million. How?
Yeah.
All right? It's easy to make that statement. But where are you going to put 6 million passengers? You cannot put them in Manila. And you need a lot of different destinations for those passengers to go to. So it would be a big mistake to do anything
mistake, huh?
but to promote both. And even maybe a third airport. It shouldn't. Airports generate growth. Just look around the world.
So-
Look at your neighbors.
So the reports about another airport in Bulacan being constructed doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me, except I think it would be foolish. The Philippines, to build a new airport,
Yes.
an airport today needs
Time
around
frame.
2,500 hectares to 4,000 hectares to be an international airport. To build that airport today is going to take around $8 billion US dollars.
US, right?
$8 billion US dollars. Now, the Philippines has trouble feeding its population with rice, with healthcare, with education. You go to the movie theater, want to build 10,000 new classrooms, donate 10 pesos. There is such a demand for social services in this country. It would be much better to take $8 billion and put it into social services, badly needed social services, and use the existing Clark airport. It's already bought and paid for at Clark.
Right.
That is superb.
And in operation.
And it's only from Bulacan to here is only like another half-hour drive. So to me,
Yes.
it doesn't make sense from a business perspective. It doesn't make sense from a political perspective. But again, all we can do is bring in the experts to try to help increase the awareness and understanding through things like this conference. This conference, I think, will help bring in
Yes.
visionaries like Tony Fernandez, Greg Lindsay. We're working on getting big airport operators to come in and speak and let the Philippines really benchmark what's working in the other international
So
communities.
definitely this will cause some steering.
Well,
or awakening of the importance of
awakening, I think it's more an issue of getting people to understand.
Yes.
Then should be no fear.
Yes.
NAIA will always
Be there.
pull in 29 million, 30 million passengers, always.
Yes.
Or even slightly higher, but it is limited physically, all right? But why wouldn't you want another 25 million passengers coming in at Clark?
Yes.
And maybe another one in the south. Further south, though, than NAIA, even
Yes.
maybe further south than Laguna,
Batangas area.
Batangas area. Because the airports will generate that growth and that economy, and it also helps serve to decongest Metro Manila. because people now have another destination. Go
That's
for
one big
jobs.
problem that we're facing right now, the congestion of Metro
Yes.
Manila. And we offer, Clark right now offers the best alternative, right, or support for in the solution of the problem in Metro Manila. How are we readying ourselves for this?
Yeah, this conference would definitely educate our people. It's more of an information drive, if you will. Last year, we also did a marketing sortie in Hong Kong to cater to our fellow kababayans, the
Yes.
Filipinos working in Hong Kong, and they're very quite surprised to find out that we have flights available in Clark.
Yes.
They would say, if I come through Clark, then I will be nearer because I live in Cabanatuan, I live in Tarlac, I live in Pangasinan and everything. They say, we never knew about this one.
No hassle in going to Manila,
Yes,
right? Because
exactly.
Manila, if you're from North Philippines, I
Yes.
mean North of Manila around, it's a hassle to.
Yes, and on the
to go
other hand,
there.
people are saying also, it will not work if you don't have the connectivity between Clark and Manila. That's why they're saying you have to have the rail first. And we say, okay, the rail takes time. So what are we doing? Clark International Airport Corporation, just yesterday, we partnered with the private sector, with the Trinoma Group, the
Yes.
Ayala Group, and they gave us a very beautiful launch in the Trinoma Mall, wherein we will be having scheduled buses coming from Trinoma to Clark
Probably
and
we need
vice
more, huh?
versa.
More of
Yes,
those.
Yes. So that what happens is this is on a scheduled basis, on a regular
Right.
basis. Initially, they will be synchronized with our flights here in Clark, but it would come up to a point wherein they will be going in and out, let's say every hour, then maybe every 30 minutes. Similar to the bus system that you see in Kuala Lumpur. When you go to KL is the Sepang Airport is quite far from downtown KL, but they have a very efficient bus service. That is why a lot of passengers doesn't mind going through this bus companies going to the downtown city. Mr. Luciano is even envisioning later on it would elevate to what we call as airport coaches, like for VIPs, for
Yes.
people who could afford to pay. They want more convenience and comfort in the way they travel. So this is a start.
Well,
Now-
because those who are traveling now mostly are businessmen also.
Yes.
They're not just
Yes.
tourists, they're not just OFWs. And most of the businessmen, that's their mode.
Exactly. Before we thought we have 8 low-cost airlines flying in and out of Clark. Before we thought who would travel here? Maybe mostly OFWs, those backpackers and everything. You'll be quite surprised to find out that even executives are traveling now via budget airlines because for them it's just a short distance,
Yes.
1.5 hours,
And they're
4
businessmen.
hours.
They wanna
exactly,
save.
Exactly. Time is more important to them.
Yes, time.
If you could travel business class to Manila, but you will be wasting, let's say, 2 to 3 hours traveling from Clark to Manila, or plus 2 to 3 hours if you're coming from Baguio, from
Yes.
Lawag, from everywhere else. So they find the convenience and the time factor for them. Being able to save, if you're an executive, time is very precious for you. So being able to save 2 hours, that means a lot already. You could have accomplished a lot of things. So we're doing this slowly. We're now saying to people, now we have the connectivity. Later on, we go towards the rail. Definitely, that is needed. We're not saying we don't need the rail. We need that on a later date. Even in Haneda and Narita, the train came in after. It
Yes.
didn't come immediately.
Even Dulles National
Exactly.
Airport.
Yes. So it will come later on. What we're saying is from Trinoma
Because
to
there's
Clark.
the demand for it, right?
Yes. From Trinoma to Clark, you could be in Clark in an hour's time because it's calculated. You could take either Mindanao Avenue or that short span of EDSA from Balintawak, and then in an hour or so you're definitely in Clark. But if you put that station somewhere in Mall of Asia or Mega Mall, it depends on the traffic condition of Manila.
Yes.
How soon can you get out of Manila? But Trinoma is quite strategic because in a way your time is calculated. You would know that in an hour's time you're inside Clark.
I was invited to go to the Trinoma ceremony yesterday. I left the office at 12:30, exactly 12:30. The ceremony started at 2.
2.
I was there with 15 minutes to spare. I attended the ceremony, went back in and did a little bit of shopping inside of the mall, went up to Taco Bell, that I love, and
A
filled
lot of
myself
commercials,
up,
huh?
filled myself up with Taco Bell, right? And back here in the office by 5:15.
Yeah.
Yes.
From 12:30, I went to Manila, did my business in Manila back here. This issue of distance is really a misnomer. I believe it stems because the decision makers, both political and business decision makers, seem to be in Makati or Malacañang, very centrally centric.
Imperial Manila.
And they forget about all the people who live in the northern provinces, or that 23 million people in a catchment basin, which incidentally, the rail will not help. The rail won't help anybody to the north of us, and the rail won't help anybody in Region 3, and the rail won't help you if you lived in Caloocan. Who does the rail tend to help? Imperial Manila. And so if you get through this thinking, you can realize then that the rail is very important. Do it, definitely.
Yes.
But it is not essential. There is no
But
rail.
even if we do a rail here, we cannot do all the stops, right?
No, you're not going to have a stop everywhere. But that's my point. So there is no rail between O'Hare and Midway, JFK, LaGuardia, Washington, Dulles, and National, Haneda, well, today, Haneda and Narita, but not originally. And most of the airport twins, there's no rail, even in London. Try to get between Heathrow and Gatwick. And so it's very important to follow. But if you have the flights, people will go. The other thing is, most of the Imperial Manila do not drive themselves. They have a driver. So they'll do work in the car while their driver takes them to and from.
They do that now, right?
But they do that now. But the average Filipino, say, living in Quezon City, it's much easier for him to drive up to Clark or get to Clark, especially with a Trinoma bus, than going down to Naiya.
And sooner there will be more buses servicing our area, right?
Yes. Now we started with 3 bus companies, with Filtranco, with Genesis, and with Victory. But Victory brings in 3 bus companies also, 5 Star, Cisco, and Victory itself. But only 2 buses right now are able to enter Clark, which is Genesis and Filtranco. Definitely later on, once the demand is there, it would mature to more regular flights. Let's say more frequent bus travels between Manila and Clark. What we're doing now is we're trying to provide the connectivity. We're trying to solve the connectivity issue that Clark is not located to Manila. It's very far away. One time I was invited by the American Chamber in Makati. They have a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we were invited. Clark Airport was invited to participate. I left Clark at 6 in the morning. I arrived in Makati late, 9:15 in the morning. And there was this one guy saying, you could not transfer the airport to Clark because it's just too far away. It's too far away in terms of travel time, blah, 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 and everything. And then after he was speaking, I raised my hand and I told the group, you know, guys, I came from Clark this morning. I left Clark 6 in the morning. I was at Balintawak 6:45 in the morning, and I came late for our meeting here in Makati at 9:15, at 9 o'clock, and I came in 9:15. So you do the math.
Yes.
What do you mean by saying Clark is too far? I was in Manila, 45 minutes from Clark to Manila, but from Manila to Balintawak to Makati, then that's another story.
But you know, those tourists who are coming from Manila to rest here at Clark during the weekends, they are now understanding the real situation here, right? What you were talking about.
Yes.
It's the span from EDSA to the airport that's really troublesome. That's taking a lot of time. Anyway, we're gonna have a short break. After the break, I'd like Dennis here to talk about picturing, because you're talking about the improvement of the total Philippine economy, right? But we want to picture what's gonna happen to the region, to the local communities once we're to our objectives of seeing Clark as the center for aviation. Kaibigan, wag po kayong aalis. Maganda po itong pinag-uusapan namin na kayong mga taga-gitnang Luzon, Central Luzon people, para ho mas maintindihan po natin kung anong napag-uusapan, kung gaano po kahalaga ang ating pong Clark International Airport sa ating pong buhay, mga kaibigan. Babalik po kami.